Hey, I'm Peter Reinhardt. Welcome back to Pizza Talk on Pizza Quest. And we're here with the Pizza Yodas, John Arena and Brian Spangler. And we've been talking about all sorts of things. This is the beginning of what we hope will be a long-running series on, sort of an outgrowth of the workshop that we've done at Pizza Expo called Tinkering with Your Dough. But we want to go beyond just tinkering with your dough. We want to talk about the differences between, good and great, between the journey, between craft and artisanship, and just phoning it in every day. There's a lot to cover, and we can't do it in one session. So we want to have them keep coming back, and we'll keep exploring this. And when we broke, right before we broke, we were talking a little bit about this notion of caring, of the sense that every day is an adventure, and the dough is changing. We're changing constantly. How do you stay on top of caring? But even more importantly, John, you've got at least 4 or 5 locations of Metro Pizza in Las Vegas. Brian, you're expanding your operation from one location, but it's now gone to a 7-day-a-week situation during this COVID era. So I want to talk with both of you a little bit about how you transmit this sense of personal caring and craft that you carry to the people who are working for you, and what it is you look for in employees and the people you hire to be able to carry on at the same level of quality that you bring to the game. So, John, why don't you start us off? Because you've got a lot of locations, which means you got a lot of staff, a lot of people to train. How do you do it?
Well, first of all, there's always going to be a difference between a pizzaiolo and a pizza mechanic or a pizza assembler, and you have to recognize that. And when you're operating multiple locations, you have to become comfortable with the idea that some people are just not going to be as into it as you are. So the challenge is, how do you have to live your culture. You have to lead by example. You lead from the front. Pizza makers, pizzeria. I'm a fan of pizzeria owners who are pizza makers. Not, I like to see pizza makers on the line, living that life, and having flour in their shoes. If you go home and throw your work clothes into the washing machine, you should end up with a batch of dough. Yeah, you have to be that committed.
Right.
And then you look for people that are like-minded. You have to look for people that, first of all, have pride, and people that have commitment, and also have to look for people that are a little bit obsessive. Think of any great pizza maker that you know, any great bread baker that you know. We're all kind of crazy. So you look for like-minded people, and you got to understand that you're not going to hit a home run every time. You're not going to, you're not going to have if you've got, in our case, 180 employees, you're not going to have 180 Chris Deckers.
Chris Decker, if you could stop for a second and tell everybody about your partner, Chris Decker, who's really becoming even more and more well-known in the pizza world as his star is on the rise, and he's one of the partners in Metro Pizza, right?
Right, and Chris has been with me since he was in college. He was a pizza maker in New York, upstate New York. Came to Las Vegas to go to college. Started working for us his first day as a busboy, and then he made the mistake of mentioning to me that he knew how to make pizzas, and we pulled him up on the line. And he had that, he had that pizza gene, that desire to express himself through the food. So for Chris is the kind of guy that makes any coach look like a rock star because of the talent and the commitment. But the really great coaches are able to bring that out in people where it's not so obvious. So you kind of, just like you build a sense of when you touch the dough whether or not it's right, I think you build that same sense when you touch people. Whether or not they're right, they're ready. But you also have to be a part of that journey, and you have to be a nurturing mentor. And everybody has different buttons that need to be pushed. We've got other people that have been with us as long as Chris, who maybe are not going in the same direction, or they're going to the same place, but they're getting there in a different way. So you have to be sensitive to that.
So of your 180 or so employees, how many of them would you say are, at that level that you've brought them to that level of being able to reliably produce the highest quality of pizzas and love what they're doing, and possibly have that long-term sort of sense of drive.
In terms of pizza makers, out of
Yeah.
out of 50, maybe I have 8.
Mm.
You know, but they're the lead people. You know, they're the people that
So
are
for some, it's just a job, and for some, it's a life.
right. But you can't. Our responsibility as leaders is not to just write those other people off. You know, we can't just say, "Oh, they just don't care, and it's their fault, and I'm not responsible for that." As a leader, you have to.
Yeah.
As a leader, whether you're a political leader or you're a leader of a business or a leader of a pizza bank, you have to be able to say, "I'm responsible for the outcome." It's up to us. It's up to me. It's up to Brian to say, how do I bring the most out of this person? How do I lead people to a place that they're going to love, but they don't even know that it exists yet?
Well, we've been jokingly sort of referring to you guys as our Pizza Yodis, and really as a Yoda of pizza. And both of you have a kind of been around long enough to have emerged at that place where people look up to you. It sounds like part of what you're saying is part of your job now is to create the next generation of Pizza Yodas, so to speak, by modeling it for them.
Sure. And, in my case with Chris, I see people coming to Chris now all the time, and they're like, I don't want to talk to that old guy. I want to talk to Chris. He's the superstar.
Yeah.
And that's the best feeling,
He's the future.
to see that.
Yeah.
To see that next generation, not only to see Chris's generation, but to see the guys that are now looking up to Chris in that way, where they used to at one time would maybe approach me, and now they're approaching him instead. That's the best.
Yeah.
Because that's my immortality. That's the closest you're going to come to being alive forever.
And I think you see something like that at some of the famous venerable pizzerias, like in New Haven, Connecticut, where you've got pizzerias that have been around since the 1920s and 30s, where now they're 34 generations into it. And again, something's been passed on because they're managing to stay at that same level. And if you guys, if Metro's going to be around 100 years from now, you're not going to be here, but you're going to have, in a sense, 2 or 3 generations influenced by the work that you guys do today. Brian's a couple years behind you in terms of when he started, but you're going to be dealing with and have been dealing with some of the same issues of bringing on proteges and the next generation. How are you doing it, Brian?
Leading, as John said, you have to lead by example. And not everybody has the same skill sets or talents. We're all different, right? And like John said, I have a certain number of people that it's more innate. It's in their nature, what we're doing here. But more importantly, it's also just instilling, what's the best word to, like, people should be proud of what they're doing. We have something really great going on here. There are people that are just assemblers that don't really have that baker's touch, but by leading by example and showing how much we care, and luckily we have a window or a door right next to our pizza oven, and on a busy night, people would come by and just go, best pizza I ever had, or, it's like, you have the customers giving feedback, and that's one of the best things about, the restaurant industry is getting that instant feedback and seeing how it's creating memories in people's lives. But it's also, as my father used to tell me, he's like, good habits breed good results. Bad habits breed bad results. So by leading by example and giving them direction and daily structure, like the recording of what's the flour temperature, what's the air temperature, what's the pouliche temperature, just getting them into these habits, whether they have the innate skill set or not, gets them involved and being to help identify potential problems. Some are better than others, and then also being proud of what you do, because I have very little turnover. My oldest employee has been with me for 16 years because she knows, and my lead kitchen manager, he's been with me for 10, and my assistant manager in the kitchen, he's been with me for 5 years, and I can always depend on them because I instill the confidence and instill like we're doing something really cool and special, and hopefully you can identify with that and take pride in what you do. And when you take pride,
thank goodness
go ahead.
I'm saying thank goodness that they've grasped, that they've gotten it. And I know everybody's on their own learning curve pace. Some people intuitively get it at the beginning. Some people grow into it, and it's great that you have the patience to stay with them and for them to stay with you. And you need it now because we're now, and of course we're just scratching the surface today of how deep this conversation can go. But we're now facing, and you're both facing, as well as all of our colleagues in the trade are facing, this challenge of staying in business during the pandemic that is sweeping the nation. And I think each of you have found a way to do it. And I was wondering if you could share with our viewers, some of the things that you're doing that might be also applicable to things that they might be able to do or maybe already are doing.
Sure.
So Brian, why don't you start us off with that?
Well, when this all went down, Oregon was pretty quick to respond. The governor of Oregon had the stay-at-home law. Non-essentials had to shut down. And I'm a fighter, and I've worked too hard I don't quit, so I just instantly was like, okay, I'm going to go from 90% dine-in restaurant to 100% to go and save all of the jobs for my employees and keep their health benefits, because we pay for their health benefits 100%. I just started thinking, and luckily, from experience of being around the business for so long, 35 years, I just intrinsically had this gut feeling of how to. Now, all of a sudden, I need, instead of 6 cases of pizza boxes a week, I need 25. So I was on the horn immediately, calling people to get the supply chains going. Also, letting my purveyors and producers know that not only do I expect to be using not only the same amount, I might be using more. So it's the communication. I was getting calls from like Tom Cortopassi called me saying how I was doing, and Grande Cheese called me. And
Tom is the owner of Stanislaus Tomatoes, right?
And we use this olive oil as well, the Porto olive oil, which is also part of their program. And I was like, please make sure that I'm going to not get shorted. This is what I'm predicting. It was a lot of it was communication. Spent a lot of time on the phone, making sure that I could keep everything flowing. And then also we had to quickly adapt. Servers are no longer serving tables, but how can I hold their job and utilize them with the systems of doing, everything to go now? Because we didn't do a lot to go before. So it was creating new roles and failing a little bit on systems, and luckily a lot of, God, I love my employees. They came in with ideas too. We had ideas that worked out from the get-go, but they also were identifying better ways to run the systems. So it would be a nice clean flow. And so we kind of rearranged the kitchen a little bit and ordered some products to help facilitate that and make that as easy as possible. Now, after 5 weeks, we pretty much have this down to a science. And
so you've not only learned how to listen to your dough, but you're listening to your employees as well, which sounds like one of the key.
You have to listen to the business. Like, you can't force a square peg in a round hole. It tells you what it wants. You have to listen. You have to identify. You can't just like stand still and put that stake in the ground. You have to adapt and observe. And at the same time.
So can you briefly tell us, give us a sense of what the model is now? How is it that you do business today? What's the system?
So we got rid of all the delivery systems because we used to have throttles we use Caviar. We used to use Caviar as a delivery system, and we used to have throttles. They can only order so many pizzas, and we would have to accept and all this other stuff. for the customer. They would get a notification, they've accepted your order, it'll be ready in this period of time. Well, they took all that off, and it was the most chaotic night I've ever seen in my entire life. And more importantly, it was also becoming, this, for me, food should be something where you're interacting with people, right? It's all the online ordering and all that stuff was like starting to take the human element out of it. So what used to be a server, I'm like, okay, so you're going to man the hours, the phone, start taking orders an hour before we start making pizzas. So now we start answering the phones at 3 p.m. And on like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we stop answering the phones and take it off the hook with an outgoing message that we're done for the night at around 5 p.m. So in a 2-hour window, I can sell basically all the products that we made for the day. And yeah, it's just like little things like that of the system of how to flow. What used to, one person just runs the food from the kitchen to the front. One person just deals with the credit card payments and sanitizing all of the pens and the credit cards and the services that people are exposed. Well, luckily, like one side of my restaurant, I have 2 sides of my restaurant. One side is about 1,400 square feet. We never have more than 4 people in here waiting at a time. So there's plenty of space for everybody to have the social distancing and while they're waiting for their pizza. But kind of coming full circle on this, the communication of answering the phone, talking to the people. We haven't limited our menu. They can still do half and halves and build their own and all the other great stuff. But we have that line of communication, not only the connectivity with the customer and communicating, but also the communication between what's going on with the kitchen, so we can actually give them a seriously accurate window of when their food's going to be ready. So a lot of people come in here and they're only here like maybe 3 or 4 minutes. Their pizza comes right out of the oven and then they're gone. You know, it's and then also being aggressive. Like one thing we did initially was we took all of we used to do a lot of beer and wine sales in-house. So we made it so basically it was like maybe the same price or a little more expensive than going to the grocery store to get a bottle of wine or some beers or whatever. We just slashed the pricing on that. So not only were we sitting on inventory, but we're continuing to move inventory, making a slight profit, and also keeping the supply chain, the producers of that product, the delivery drivers, the representatives, everything, but keeping the wheels turning and giving a value add to our customers.
Basically, you're open for just a few hours a night. You give people a time, essentially a window when they should arrive to pick it up. They can come in and get it, or they stand outside and it's brought out to them, or what?
Well, when it's raining, like today it's raining here in Portland. We have a 1,400 square foot space. All the booths are 6 feet apart. So we put markers all on the floor of where, you know, the 6 feet distance rules are. We figured out how many pizzas we can make in a 15-minute window. So the first, we asked people, when would you like your pizza? Do you want it between 4 and 4:15, 4:15, 4:30, 4:40, 4:30, 4:45? How many pizzas? We have a clipboard where the person answering the phone, when they get pizzas in that time slot, they start marking it down. When the time slot's full, they cross it off. No more pizzas in that time slot. And we always tell people about 5 minutes later than we realistically think it's going to be. So that way they're not sitting around waiting. And it's been a really good
system.
Because they're not in here for very long. A lot of times, I can't tell you how many times I've seen someone walks in the door. What's your name? Jeremy M. And then the expediter comes out of the kitchen. Jeremy M.
Perfect timing. Yeah.
He's like 2 minutes out of the oven, and it's like, here you go. Bye.
Well, it sounds like I'm going to before we run out of time, I want to give John a chance to talk about how they're doing it too. But it sounds like so far you've been working out a system that's allowing you to keep up. You're making as many pizzas as you were making when you were doing the dine-in business. It sounds like
making more
than before.
Because with also, just before we go cover to John, with dine-in, you have like these ebbs and flows. People camp at tables. You can't predict what the next wave is going to be. Now, with everything being kind of blocked out, the kitchen is going nonstop. They don't have a lull. It's like go. And So we're actually making about 20% more food than we were before all this.
Well, this is amazing. And next time we come back on on our next episode of Pizza Talk, we want to talk a little bit about how all the learning that you're getting from this round is going to affect what happens when you kind of reopen in the new normal, and because you may have a totally different business by then.
Oh yeah, whenever that is.
Like it. How about you, John? Similar kind of learning curve for you?
Whatever Brian just said.
Pretty much the same. Are you doing the same thing with a big walk-up business now?
We are, but for us, it was actually probably a little easier transition because we started out as a mom and pop New York style pizzeria where 90% of your business was takeout anyway.
Right.
So over the years we had transitioned to maybe 80% dine in, 20% takeout, but it was kind of in our DNA to be able to do takeout. And we also, most of our customers were not only dine-in customers, but had already been takeout customers as well. So that transition was just, okay, now we're doing 100% takeout. So we already kind of knew how to do that. And, it was every night now is more like a Super Bowl Sunday where it's all takeout. Mm-hmm. It's all in a very concentrated area. As Brian said, he has a perfect solution to it. You have time slots. I can do X amount of pizzas in this 15-minute window. And my order takers are trained to know you don't try to squeeze 3 times as many pizzas into that 15 minutes as we can actually handle. So, as long as you're organized, every one of my managers was kind of freaked out at the beginning, and now they're like, let's just do takeout from now on. This is easy. And like, what do we do with the 200-seat restaurant that we have? We're doing
as going to be one of the big questions.
A typical Friday or Saturday night now, we're doing as much business as we ever did. And, some of the weeknights we're doing more business than we usually do. And it's easier because we know everything's going in a package. Everything's going in a box. Juggling
this
delivery.
Is very,
takeout,
very hopeful. Very hopeful news for both of you. What's that?
Juggling dine-in and carry-out and coordinating that is a challenge on the kitchen. Just doing straight takeout where everything's going in a box or a bag, everything's going in a container, their lives are way easier now.
Yep.
We're doing basically.
We're going to explore this further in the next future episodes, and I want to tell the people who are watching this because this is our very first launch of Pizza Talk, and our first kind of go round with our Pizza Yodas. And I want to tell you, we want to keep this going, but we want to include the viewers in the conversation. So what we're going to do in the future is today was just simply the 3 of us Zooming together, but in the future we're going to also live stream it, and we're going to open it up for people to sign in and be part of the taping or the recording of this session so that they can ask questions in real time. So we're going to continue to dive deeper and deeper into this as we go further and take Pizza Talk, into new territories that we don't even know where it's going to go. We want to see where it's going to go. Today was a chance to kind of get the ball rolling and to, just start the flow. And hopefully this will be either a weekly or bi-weekly gathering of our pizza community to join in the conversation. And we'll add some new features. We have other people that are going to be guest drop-in performers. We've got the man on the street things, and we've got quizzes and all sorts of other stuff that we want to add to this. But for today, we really want to start this with our pizza masters, our Yodas. And one thing I loved from today has been that you're talking about already thinking about the Yodas of the future and grooming them for the next round. And all those are really what Pizza Quest has always been about from the beginning, and why you guys are such an important part of it. So let me just thank you both. At this point, that's a final goodbyes to each of you. So John, thank you again for being part of this. And Brian, also, we've been talking about doing this. We usually only get to do it once or twice a year at the Pizza Expos, and now we're going to get to do it on a regular basis. So it's been great to be with you. And this is Peter Reinhardt inviting all of you who are watching us to come back to see Pizza Talk as we keep growing this, be a part of the Pizza Talk presented by Pizza Quest with our Pizza Yodas. Who knows? We're going to keep changing the name even as we go along. But thanks for joining us. Brian, John, thank you both.